Council mics are on. Hi, nice to meet you.
This passage roads.
Yes. Well, no, it will have municipal buy-in, essentially. We're on board.
Yes.
I forgot. Nicholas, I'll use you as my sound check. Can you hear us all right? Lovely. Hope you're feeling all right.
All right, everybody, it is 6 o'clock and I'll call this Barre City Council meeting to order this Tuesday, October 24th at 6 p.m. Council present tonight, we have Councilor Deering, Councilor Schambell, Councilor Boone, Councilor Wozniak, Councilor Stockwell, and Councilor Lozone. Staff joining us tonight, we have Clerk Treasurer Dawes, remotely the City Manager, Shirley Castro.
Janet Shatney is online.
Planning, Permitting, and Assessing Director, Janet Shatney. All right. So tonight's agenda is available online.
Oh, and Dawn's here.
Oh, and Dawn, yes, City Manager Dawn. Good evening, Dawn. So tonight's agenda is available online and in the back of the room. The meeting has been publicly posted, is being recorded, and subject to Vermont's open meeting law and the Council's rules of procedure, both of which are available online. I'd offer a warm welcome to all of our guests joining us tonight and members of the public. To those of you joining us online, please keep in mind that the chat function should only be used for technical issues or difficulties, not dialogue, and to remain muted when you're not speaking. The city offers online access as a convenience, and we will continue the meeting if any technical difficulties occur. Please raise your hand or signal if you'd like to be recognized. I'll call on speakers in order, allowing those who haven't spoken yet to speak first. Please state your name for the record. And here in the room, if you could come to the front microphone, that way the recording can pick you up and the people online can hear you. Please state your name for the record, and if you have any questions about process or procedure, please ask and we will get it sorted. And I want to thank everyone in advance, as I always do, for participating in a civil and respectful way. With that, that takes us to our second item on the agenda, adjustments to the agenda. Manager Sterling Castro.
None for me, Mayor.
Clerk Treasurer Doss.
We do have one item to add to the consent agenda. The Barre Partnership has been awarded a Downtown Vibrancy Fund grant, and there is a municipal letter of attestation to be approved and signed. I'll be passing it around for your signatures, and we'll obviously put it on next week for ratification. It's a $25,000 grant to help them with marketing and hiring a part-time person to do events coordination, et cetera. So.
And on that, I just realized the source of funding, that's a potential conflict of
All right, so
appearance
we'll
of
do it
conflicts
as
of interest for me, so
separate
I'll set
item.
that as a separate item on the consent agenda.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to know we have the governor joining us tonight, so we're going to move up the North End flood recovery discussion and presentation from state partners to visitors and communications. But I know Clerk Treasurer Dollars, you have a liquor item that you'd like to just get wrapped up quickly.
So that we don't have to have people stay.
So
They're welcome to stay.
I'm going to shuffle that. I'll move that as our next item on the agenda. We'll do the proclamation for Extra Mile, and then we'll jump into visitors and communications and pivot to the North End flood recovery discussion. Are there any other adjustments from council on the agenda? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us to the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board. Clerk Treasurer Dawson.
Right, we do have, I emailed around to everybody, is Seiji Ohashi here? And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, or online? I don't see him. He was going to be here.
All right.
Oh, is Jessica here? No? Well, council had the application sent to you. This is for the Barre Big Bridge LLC. On the application, you'll notice that it's listed as the Eddy, but that's actually not the name they're going by now. There was a recent change, but it hasn't been updated on their application. But the LLC is still the same. Here, oh, he's coming online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep vamping.
Yeah, keep vamping.
Here it is.
Okay. Seiji, we've moved the liquor license way up to the top of the agenda, and you're on. I was just giving them a quick update.
Before you continue, I'm conflicted out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Seiji and I have this bromance thing going on, it wouldn't be right.
So I was just giving them a very quick update, and if you would just remind me what the name of the establishment is. It's not the Eddy, it's...
The name is Tally. T-A-L-Y.
Okay. And you were going to reach out to the Division of Liquor Control and talk with them about the change?
Yep, they updated the application online for me, so the name's match now.
Okay, perfect. So as is our process, we invite new license holders to come in and meet with the council, so I throw it open to all of you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Are all the department head sign-offs?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Seiji, is there anything that you'd like to share about your business, or not that it's obligated, but you're welcome to.
No, I'm just really excited to open up. We've been working on it for 9 months in earnest now. The flood set us back a little bit, but overall we fared pretty well. I could give you a quick tour of the.
Oh, cool.
I feel like we've turned it into a really beautiful space. There's a mural in the background, and Yeah, we're just looking forward to opening and becoming a nice addition to downtown Barre.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Always welcome a new business downtown. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Deering?
Just wanted to know what brings you to Barre?
Well, my wife grew up in Montpelier, and so we moved to Montpelier 8 years ago. We're friends with Pete Coleman, and so when I was looking for a place to open a new pool hall / bar, I contacted Pete, and he said, "Oh, well, I just so happen to have a building for rent." So it's all very serendipitous, and yeah, it's been great so far.
Very exciting.
The improvements look great.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further, Councilor Booth?
Yeah, I'm going to be abstaining only because that's what I do for all liquor licenses. It has nothing to do with you. I'm very interested in what you're going to be doing though. Because you're going to be having games down there, correct?
Correct.
Is that?
We're gonna have we have 3 pool tables. We have a 14-foot shuffleboard table, and we're going to have chess tournaments and hopefully Scrabble tournaments as well, and probably cribbage. We're really gonna push gaming.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Maybe the quick version of D&D. I know they have a version that is supposed to be a little bit quicker and a little bit easier to play. Yeah, we're gonna try and have tournaments, and we're gonna have Wi-Fi available for customers until 5 p.m. So we're gonna promote. It's fine to work during the day if you need to get something done, but at nighttime, screens away. We're only gonna have one TV in the bar for major sporting events. We're not gonna be a sports bar by any means. We're gonna be more of a offline kind of gaming bar.
Cool.
Well, thank you for that introduction. We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention noted. The ayes have it. Congratulations on approval of your licensure. And thanks for investing in Barre.
Thank you.
But that takes us to a presentation of an Extra Mile Day mayoral proclamation. This is an annual recognition for people who go the extra mile. This year there are 2 names that were selected in coordination with Clerk Treasurer Dawes, Amanda Gustin and Sean Trader. And I think all of us remember the early days of the flood when power was out, roads were closed, we had 20 landslides. We had many people in apartments in vulnerable conditions without power, without medicine that needed refrigerated. 211 was not functioning, and these 2 people stepped up to fill the gaps of the horizontal mutual aid that defines Vermont so much. And they were there to going the extra mile every day for not just a few days after the flood, but still today, going the extra mile in flood recovery. And so I'll read this proclamation, but just wanted to take that time to just recall the exceptional service that these 2 people delivered to ensure that there were volunteer networks providing needs that our formal emergency management systems were not providing. So this is City of Barre, Vermont mayoral proclamation naming November 1st, 2023 Extra Mile Day. Whereas Barre City, Vermont is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Barre City, Vermont encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Barre City, Vermont chooses to shine a light on and celebrate those who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Barre City, Vermont brings these names forward to the Extra Mile organization as examples of the many people and organizations who step forward to support our community through their service and commitment. Amanda Gustin and Sean Trader. Whereas Barre City, Vermont acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile Day and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2023 by submitting these names for recognition of the type of efforts that epitomize what makes it a community. Now, therefore, I, Jay Kimrick, Mayor of the City of Barre, Vermont, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2023 to be Extra Mile Day. I urge each individual in the community to take time on that day to not only go the extra mile in their own life, but also to acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, and world a better place. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and affix the official seal of the City of Barre in the state of Vermont, this 24th day of October 2023 AD. And Sean, I know you're accepting these proclamations. Absolutely.
Hi, it's Sean with the Rainbow Bridge Community Center. Thank you so much for the kind words. I stand amongst a great community. So many stepped forward and helped out in the time of need. We could not be here without each other. We will not be here without each other. Our work, all the work of those who go the extra mile, it continues to be relevant because the need persists. Direly so. We must act. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, that takes us to visitors and communication. And so our first item of communication is the North End Flood Recovery presentation from State Partner. Welcome, Governor Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can screen share, just someone has to indicate when to hit next slide and all of that fun stuff.
I don't think we'll be ready for slides until we have the others come up. You just have to listen to me now for a few minutes.
We're used to it.
Again, for the record, Governor Phil Scott, and I appreciate you having us here tonight to talk about this vision, this concept that we've been working on for the last few weeks. And I just want to remind everyone, this is not etched in stone. This is a concept and a vision for what I see that could be helpful to the city of Barre and to the region. I can't think of a better way to start tonight than with your mayoral proclamation and for your great words, Sean, in trying to make sure that we're all taking care of one another, that we're all in this together, and that we have a long ways to go. And I feel the same way about the flood here that we experienced back in July. And this is going to be a long-term effort. But we're up for the challenge, and I believe all of you are as well. My ties to Barre go back a ways. I'm not going to put the years in, but you can figure it out. I was born about 1,000 feet from here on the right-hand side at Barre City Hospital. Grew up on Onward Street at the end of Courier up near Perrin Farm, what was then the Perrin Farm. And went to Lincoln School, and then to Spalding Graded, which is now the History Center, and then to Spalding High School. I picked up my papers. I had a paper route then. Picked up my papers next door down in the press room at the Times Argus at that time, and played minor league baseball. Down at the north end where a substantial amount of damage happened, and what we're here to talk about tonight, as well as Pee Wee hockey down near the sewer treatment plant in the open rink, I guess is still there as well. So again, my heart is in Barre, even though I've moved to other places, and it always will be. But that's not why we're here tonight. because what we're going to present is something that will be strategic for not only Barre and an opportunity for Barre, but also, again, for the entire region. When you think about the amount of damage here in Barre, Berlin, Montpelier, even Waterbury, all of this we all need to do our part in terms of trying to mitigate damage in the future. We, after the flood hit back in July, we had FEMA Director Criswell here, and we had our congressional delegation as well, and we all toured the north part of Barre. Senator Sanders, Senator Welch, Representative Ballant, and myself and others all went to view the damage, to talk to the neighborhood, and to try and give them our assurance that we're here for the long run. We're going to do whatever we could to help them as well, because it was devastating. And when you look at Washington County in particular, hardest hit, I've seen there's a lot of damage in other places, in Ludlow and Johnson and Cambridge and Hardwick and so forth, but no county suffered as much as Washington County, and no community, I believe, had more damage than Barre. When you look at the amount of debris that we've collected, and we keep track of that, it was about 2.5 times what Montpelier had collected, and we saw the visual there in Montpelier, all the debris out in the streets and sidewalk and so forth. But 2.5 times have been collected of that amount here in Barre. So that tells you a lot about what happened here. So soon after, and I've been speaking with their congressional delegation. They're supporting this effort, and Senator Sanders told me last week when we were at an event together, he said, there's some opportunity in Washington right now. There's extra money that was put into the disaster relief fund that is going to be up for grabs, so to speak. But there is nothing that is being appropriated individually or spread throughout the states. It's first come, first serve. And he said, so we need to act quickly. And so I took that to heart. I took my team down to the public safety building to talk about my vision, to show them what I was thinking. And again, it was really about how do we protect the neighborhood? How do we protect the people that live in those homes? And how do we give them something better in the future? And again, I went back to the day that we visited there, and I couldn't assure them in the present condition where they're living right now that this wasn't going to happen again, because I believe this will happen again. These 100-year storms are turning into 10-year, decade storms instead. And that end of Barre will be hit, I believe, again. So when I look at the region, when I come into Barre from the north, I envision you go past the Granite Museum, which has done a remarkable job in showcasing in some respects, and they've been improving every single year for the last couple of decades. And it's there to tell the story of Barre. And so when you enter Barre, you see that on the right, the old Jones Brothers granite shed. My uncle was a sawyer there. My other uncle was a welder for Smith, Wickham and Cook, a fabricator, and I spent a lot of time there. So again, going past there, coming into the community, where what was the Wabi Hotel there on the left, and the Dairy Queen that was there, now the Salvation Army. When you look at that and you look at the North Barre School up above, what I see is a lot of opportunity. If we can make some changes there, just imagine, again, coming into the gateway of Barre and envisioning that you're looking up at the grand North Barre School, greatest school at the time, and the public safety building down below. And just think about the opportunity for not just replacing the amount of housing that we lost and could lose, but the amount we could gain. We think by maybe 4 times the amount of housing could be placed if done in different sizes, different types, for all different types of people as well. So think about, you know, a more multi-story, like the senior, what was a senior housing structure that's there, much like that coming in, but also duplexes, condos and so forth along that ridge there. And as well, some single family opportunities for people that might want to keep their home, maybe put a foundation in and move their home to something higher ground. So again, just keep an open mind about what we're proposing here, but we're trying to meet people where they are. We're trying to take advantage of an opportunity that's before us to make lemonade out of lemons. And so, again, this isn't just about Barre. This will benefit the entire region. Not forcing anything on anyone. We're just trying to inspire people to think broadly about what we could do right now in this time to help Barre and to open up this gateway into Barre with a green space now where a lot of the buildings are damaged on the 302 portion. Turn that into green space so that people could come in, enjoy life with their families, maybe have some a playing field of some sort or not, but maybe just a parkway with some granite sculptures and so forth that aren't going to be impacted by any future flooding, and let the water store there when it needs to, and easily cleaned up, as opposed to having housing there that is difficult to clean up and impacts people's lives every single day. Don't have to remind you all of that. You're seeing it for yourself and living with it every day. So again, I'll pass it over to our Chief Recovery Officer, Doug Farnham, for a few words, and then we'll let the architects explain what they've done. All right.
Thank you, Governor. Tough to follow the governor, so I won't take you guys too long, but I did want to just bring us back to a couple of weeks ago when we were here. There were a couple principles that we've been approaching this work with, that we've been trying to let guide our sketches and guide our approach to this project. The first is we need to maximize federal funds. Your community was hit hard, you need help, and we want to help find that federal assistance to make those larger goals possible. And part of the value in advancing this conversation on figuring out what the community wants to do in this area will be the more that we can figure out and the more we can gel a concept together, the easier it will be for our federal delegation to get funds, the easier it will be for the state to approach federal programs and try to secure funds. We know that we're going to need federal funds for this work. And that's one of our top goals, is finding funds to help Barre move this forward. We need to build resiliency and reduce risk. Like the governor said, we don't want people going through what they're going through right now. Now, we can call it a 100-year storm. I tend to agree with the governor that it's starting to feel more like a 10-year storm. And weather has been changing at a rate where it's very difficult for any of us to predict how often these types of events will actually happen. So I think it's just very important that we protect our communities, and we really want to invest in reducing that risk to homeowners and making sure that people feel safe in their own homes. And that, you know, I cringe a little bit when I see it raining now. That's not right. You know, I think many people in Vermont are a little bit traumatized by this summer. So we want to take that and use it as an opportunity to grow and to protect people. If we don't come through this and really do something meaningful, then people won't feel like we're trying to protect them. And we really do want to make sure that people don't have that risk in their homes. We want to respect your local visions for growth. Again, we're bringing these sketches as a starting point for a discussion, and just so that people can start to work with the concept, start to figure out what they like and what they don't like. we really want to make sure we are supporting the way that Barre wants to grow. We want to do that in, the safest, most environmentally friendly model, but we do really think that we can find a balance where we can coexist with the river without it being a threat. Rivers in Vermont are beautiful and they're a great resource. So we do want to respect that growth. Talked last time about housing units. Obviously, this plan incorporates a growth in housing unit numbers. I think everyone here has recognized that Barre needs housing units, that you can't afford to lose those housing units in the traditional flood buyout approach where, if you lose a parcel, you lose that housing unit, and there's no clear means and clear and direct means to replacing that. It's critical that this plan doesn't result in Barre having less housing. And then, of course, ensuring there are still homeownership opportunities. That blend will be something, that we rely on the community to figure out. We can propose concepts, but it really comes down to what is the blend for the people in Barre? What types of homes, what types of properties are they interested in? And I just, again, reinforce that we're not going to be forcing this on anyone. The buyouts will be voluntary. This whole plan really needs to come together as a community approach, and we would want to be flexible in helping everyone figure out what their options are to make sure that they're living the type of life in Vermont with the type of property that they want to own. So I think the goal here is really to figure out a flexible approach to making this project happen. So again, initial concept, and it's not going to be forced on anyone. This is just to start the conversation and really get the ball rolling and see, as we get more federal funds, as we get more details, I think the gaps will start to get filled in. But it's really important just to begin the conversation now while there's still the energy. And as the governor said, we have a limited window on the federal opportunity, and we want to take advantage of that. I'm the Chief Recovery Officer for the whole state, but this project is one of the major projects that we're going to have to undertake in the next couple of years. It's really, if you look at all the data, there's a lot of different ways of slicing it. Barre was heavily impacted, so we really want to make sure that we reduce that risk going forward and that we come out of this stronger. So with that, I would just ask the team from Black River to come up and start going into it.
Can I ask some questions before we jump into the
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's okay?
That's whatever you want. I was going to ask you whether you wanted us to stay here for questions at this point, or
Maybe if there's just questions for the governor.
Yeah, it's they're bigger than the design question. So before we jump into the designs, I'm a bit confused on the federal funding piece. So, Governor, you said you had a conversation with Senator Sanders in which he said there was additional money in the disaster relief fund. Was that part of the continuing resolution?
yes.
Okay. So
Yeah, it was, they'd asked for like 6 billion, and they got 16 billion.
Okay, into the disaster relief fund, and that money can be accessed and used for.
It can be used for purposes like this. So
Large
there's
scale redevelopment, not just.
all kinds of different things, depending on the community and need of the state that they're representing.
Okay, so that was part of the 45-day continuing resolution, and does any of this money need additional authorization from Congress before it is spent or once it's dealt with out of the?
It's in place now, and so.
There's no Speaker of the House, so I figured I'd have to make sure that we don't need any more congressional approval. And then
But there will need to be congressional approval for the individual, appropriations out of that fund. So everyone will be coming to the table with their own ideas.
Yeah, and that's one thing that makes me nervous, which is a follow-up question. I agree that we definitely need federal money to do whatever it is we're going to do with the North End, but is there any, when the legislature reconvenes in January, is the administration going to propose any direct aid from state dollars to the city to help get things started or supplant the, this is going to be a mix of city, municipal, state, and federal funding. So how much money is going to come from the state?
Yeah, well, we've got to first agree on the approach, make sure that we're all on the same page here and what we want to do, and then have to put pen to paper to see the costs of something like this. We're very hopeful in talking with our congressional delegation that we could get enough federal funding to cover it. That's our goal, without having to dip into local resources in any large-scale capacity or into state funds either. But, time will tell. It depends on, the size of this project and the cost, but.
No, and I don't want either the state nor the municipality to be holding the bag at the end of this thing either. Which, slightly different, but it's not in the slides because we only got them about 2 hours ago, but I did review them before the meeting. What are you or your team envisioning as the community input process for this? Because you mentioned earlier wanting to protect the homes in the north end.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the map, there's, I think, 7 single-family homes identified as left after redevelopment on that map. And so what is going to be the process for engaging the north end, engaging residents?
Yeah, there actually is more, I think, placed in other areas because it's all the way out to 6th Street, I believe. So there's other opportunities in that area for single-family dwellings. But again, we thought the first thing we should do, we owe it to you, the council, to hear it first before you went to see it on CNN, with the congressional delegation pushing forward with this. So you were first. And then we need to all get together, speak to the community, speak to the neighborhood, see what they want and what they envision, and go from there and build from there. But if we can agree on a concept, whether we really want to do this or not, whether you want to do this or not. I mean, if there's really no interest, then we're not going to force this. We will honor your decision. And then go on from there. And because there's other opportunities throughout Vermont, but this one, again, this was impacted. Barre was impacted more on a per capita basis with homes in particular. And I think that this is where our focus has been.
No, I agree. I grew up in Boston. I grew up just outside of Boston, and the big project that was happening at the time was the Big Dig, which took forever and a day, the most expensive infrastructure project in American history. And one of the people who was in charge of that project, Fred Savucci, who was Dukakis's Secretary of Transportation back in the day. The reason he got into development was because when they redeveloped the elevated highway in Boston, his grandmother lost her house. And that was the lasting impression that had on him, was that development project. His core memory of the city of Boston and development was his grandmother losing his house. And I know that we both agree that neither one of us want anyone's core memory of what happened in Barre after the flood for their grandmother to lose their house. And I just don't want folks to be afraid that when they see these maps on CNN or just the Times Argus, I don't want them to be afraid that they're going to get displaced and thrown out of the city.
Yeah, I've been working personally with a number of folks in mobile home communities, so I know firsthand how they're feeling, and it's uncomfortable. It's difficult for them to be displaced from their home. River Run right down here, the last remaining homes there. We're going to start deconstructing those homes tomorrow, then move on to Cedar Ridge, and there's probably 30 homes there, and they're not coming back, and they'll be deconstructed. So I have a lot of empathy for those who have lost their homes and have seen it firsthand, and we want to prevent that from happening, losing their neighborhood here, because they're not going to have a choice.
Right.
But here, I think there's an opportunity for them to keep their neighborhood in some respects, maybe in a different building, maybe in a different situation, but that would be up to them, and try and provide as much opportunity as we can for them to live their lives the way they want to, in the setting that they want to.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we pivot to the? Just one quick question I had is, obviously this would be a long-term project, and it would be great to have. How do I want to put this? It's probably more than a 2-year term, and how will this have, if this proceeds, will the legislation ensure that there would be follow through, that we're not gonna end up with a hole in like downtown Burlington and Barre. So,
Good question, but I think I have a lot of faith in our congressional delegation. They are seasoned, and I'm sure that they'll make sure that money is protected once, if and when it happens. I just want to level set. You know, I think it's probably a 50-50 chance in some respects. In Washington, we don't know what's going to happen, but they, you know, Senator Sanders is behind this initiative, and they'll put everything into it, I'm sure, to make sure that there's something in it for Vermont and something in it for Barre in particular. So once that, I would assume, once that money is appropriated, it stays with the project.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Should we bring our boards forward a bit, or?
Yeah, as you wish, yeah.
I'm not sure where we should put them.
Yeah, well, I think they're gonna display them as well, so.
They're gonna come through on the,
So I can share the screen. I
Okay.
have the 3 PDFs. I just need, point at me and say next slide or
okay,
something like that.
sure.
So where would you like me to start?
We have the electronic version of the flooded area?
I believe so, yeah.
Yep,
Be good.
second.
Getting very low here.
Is this the map?
Well, we could start with that. We really have, there are the 3 main storyboards, and then there's some backup ones that may come up with their questions. Should we say our names first?
Yeah, so, hi, I'm Keith Robinson. I'm a partner at Black River Design Architects. My history in Barre isn't quite as much as the governor's, but I was born in the same building he was. So we do have that in common. And my family has lived in South Barre for a long time. My grandmother went to Barre Graded School, and so I have a lot of history in this area as well.
I'm Jim Drummond. I don't live in Barre. I'm not from Barre, but I am working on the building, actually. I think it's the McFarland building now, right? That used to be the hospital.
Yes.
So, working on renovations there, so. And I'm also a partner at Black River Design. So I prepared some notes, and I think a lot of Doug's notes are kind of the same things, but what we started with, we were only told about this 2 weeks ago, that actually less than 2 weeks ago, but that we met with the governor and one of his assistants, and we also have the principles that they identified, which Doug more or less went through. So we started looking at the project the way we look at everything, where we start looking at sort of background data. In this case, we looked at the zoning in the Barre City zoning, found that the area that's been identified that you can see on the screen there with the red line around it, which is the area of the study, crosses, I think it's either 5 or 6 different zoning districts, so it's quite complicated. We also looked at information. We started by just counting houses, but then we've got information from the city planning department identifying how many units of housing were in the area that's affected. I don't know how many of them were actually destroyed, but some of them must have been. And we got a number of 92 units of various sizes. I think it's a mix of single-family houses and rental apartments. Then we looked at the lot divisions in the area and found that there are a couple of quite large parcels that exist right now, some of which are in the area and some of which are just around the perimeter of it, which might become partners in any kind of development plan. Then, and the last, I mean, most obviously, we looked at the actual flood map that was given to us by the governor's office, and which I think came from ANR and the Agency of Natural Resources, and just compared it to the predicted flood zone, and it's actually pretty close. I'd say it's about 95% the same. So there may be some houses that didn't get flooded that they were predicted to, but it's pretty close. So then in terms of looking at the principles that the governor's team had identified, one was to build resistance and reduce risk. The way to do that, at least in the concept that we're presenting, is to take some of the area that is, as the previous speakers were saying, is flooded regularly and can be expected to flood again, and have a voluntary buyback program, and hopefully be able to acquire enough of the land to create this park. The other resilience principle about the concept plan that we have is that the proposed housing, new housing, is all outside of the flood zone of where it was flooded in July. And possibly, I mean, if someone were looking at this more, in a more developed way and trying to plan for building stuff, they might actually be able to raise some of the elevations as well to make it even safer. And then the other principle that we looked at, which we talked about with our civil engineer, is the idea that the proposed park might not just be emptied of buildings that are getting damaged, but it's possible that you could actually excavate it a little bit down to increase its flood storage capability. One thing our engineer wanted to point out to us is that this isn't going to solve the flooding problem in itself, but it will help, especially if it's part of a regional river corridor planning study, where other sites along the river and around the state are identified that could be similarly treated. It would improve the resilience of the overall river system in Vermont. Then in terms of local vision, I know there's a lot of concerns about that, and there's so many ways that can take place. Our firm was involved in a study for the Elks golf course just outside of Montpelier, where there was a consultant hired to manage the process and actually do some of the market research and look at a lot of factors and do a lot of the public outreach in a sort of systematic way to find out what people wanted. Being Montpelier, they had to tread very carefully because there's a lot of opinions in Montpelier about everything. But I think there was some definite progress made in the first stage of it.
We never have opinions here.
Montpelier is sort of in a class of its own. But at any rate, as has already been said, I mean, what we've got on these boards is really just a concept, like to visualize the thing and sort of get a sense of how big it is. Because I mean, just like with the Elks land, people have a hard time visualizing how much is there. And so when we looked at it, we found there's certain areas you can't build in, and did all that sort of existing conditions analysis, and then determined where housing could be built and identified areas. And that's just the beginning of the process. But
we actually did an in-house design exercise where we pulled a few people from our office and said, okay, here are the parameters. Come up with a concept of how you might think you could redevelop this area. And there was just wide variation on the ideas. Do you move the 302 over next to the river? Do you make it up higher? Do you, different ways? Do you raise the land everywhere so that that's not in the floodplain anymore? So, as everybody has said multiple times, this is just a concept. It has got probably almost no bearing on reality of what the final product may be, but it's a lot easier for people to react to something that they can see other than talking about it in just verbal concept. So although this is probably not where we'll end up, it gives you something to think about, and think about the pros and the cons of that and how you may do it differently.
Can you flip it maybe to the diagram slide, the one that's like a two-dimensional plan? I think we can come back to the, so there's, I think this is, yeah, there we are. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so in this one, obviously you can see Main Street and Beckley Street, which are the two main streets in that area. One thing that was really came to our mind pretty quickly is that the public safety building actually only has one way in and one way out. It was right through the flooded area. So we thought it would be really good for that to have a second way out. So we think there's an opportunity to come out to the south to have a better way out of the public safety building. But in this particular sketch, we're proposing that Main Street remain Main Street, pretty much the way it is. But we would create a new secondary road that kind of went along the edge of the flooded area. That would be more of a road against the backside of this proposed park, and back into a more neighborhood setting. And what we try to do is come up with a concept that has a mix of multifamily. We do sprinkle a little bit of single family in there. We're trying to be sensitive to not just say, well, you've got a nice big lot with a house on it. I think you should subdivide it. We should put 4 single family houses on it. We didn't want to start proposing anything like that. So this, we showed some like 4-story buildings that could have parking below them that is in the floodplain. So that allows you to use some of that flooded area a little more effectively by still keeping it in housing, but not having the actual homes be flooded. And then maybe some duplexes, yeah, the yellow blocks with the brick pattern is what we're showing. Those are actually within the flooded area. But if you did parking below with, you know, a 3-story building above that, with multifamily, that's a possible way to do things. In this concept, we showed an addition onto the North Barre School, because we think there's a little room there to add on some more housing. We do show, as part of the gateway into the city from the north, a taller building. It might kind of bookend the tower that's on the south end of that area now. So, you know, just a little focal point as you come to town that might have some more dense housing. And then there's the conservation lot that has the purple blocks on it that we showed some, you know, duplex or maybe, you know, 3 or 4 unit housing pieces there, townhomes. So, you know, we really think that, you know, ultimately we want to hear how you want to redevelop this area, but we're trying to show that there is a mix that is possible here. And in this concept, we're showing about 225 dwellings being put in to replace the approximately 92 that were being removed.
And one other thing, just in terms of these are proposed to be not necessarily in the place where they are, they're just kind of monopoly houses in a way that we've sprinkled around. But the concept is that some of the houses would be demolished, and people would build other houses elsewhere. Or in some cases, houses that exist in here might even be, if they're not too big, might be able to move them to another site. I mean, but we didn't show many of them on here because this is our area of study, and you know, it's all, most of the surrounding area is already divided into single-family lots. So I expect that some of them might be further away than this.
And I think the other thing to point out here is that this is like the end of a many-phase effort. You know, this isn't just all going to happen at once. This is going to take place over time. So, you know, maybe a piece of the park gets built and a couple of the larger buildings happen, and you know, it's going to be a progression. So we show this as being, you know, all of a sudden it's there, but this is probably going to happen over, you know, a decade or more to actually make this happen. And it may be that some people don't want to have the buyout initially, and you know, their house may stay in that flooded area for a while until they decide they want to sell or move away or whatever the case may be.
Do you want to just look to the other slide?
Sure, and I know it's awkward, but if you're not speaking into the mic, it becomes hard to hear
for
everyone who's tuning in, so just, I know it's hard, do the best you can. All right, back to this one?
No, there's another one that goes with that. No, one back.
Oh, this is the awkward.
There we go. So there's the existing seniors tower, and there's the proposed 8-story building that would be kind of a bookend to it on the other end of the park. Here's public safety in the Barre School, and as Keith was mentioning, we've proposed a route that would get out of public safety to get high and dry above this is where it flooded again. And then these lower buildings are 4-story mid-rise type apartment buildings. They're 30 or 40 units, apartments in them, depending on, you know, whether they have parking, or in this case, we propose this could be a kind of a mixed-use building with the first story that was like, could be business spaces or, you know, startup spaces for businesses, or
maker spaces for the people who live in the building,
or something like a daycare, but you know, something that has a sort of a semi-public use to it. And then this is a kind of a park with a flowing kind of edge on it. It becomes as the governor said, a gateway into the city as you come in, and some public recreation features for people.
Does anybody have any questions?
Question, I was just wondering how the area that you scoped out was determined, because I was just surprised it doesn't include any like thing on Scampini or Vine or other river adjacent parcels.
On the other side of 302.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this being a river resilience project, but I don't see any river adjacent property.
Well, that's true. And, you know, we kind of stuck to the more residential side. We had to kind of, in the theories, you have to pick your battles on this. We're not going to be able to fix everything. But if that is the will of what you want to do, then,
I'm guessing I'm asking you, why did you pick this battle versus not the other battle?
well, this was really a discussion with the governor, and, businesses are one thing, but where you live is quite another. It's so much more personal.
Yeah, Doug.
Sorry, I can step in and help there. So we had given them this zone as just an initial snapshot from where the flooding hit. The area across the river is a lot more commercial property, which does complicate the approach to a project like this. But this is just the original zone that we sketched out very quickly based on where the floodwaters went. And it could certainly be, the lines could be redrawn. But I mean, Black River just worked off of the zone that we gave them. So that's just the starting point that we used.
Councilor Boone?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were referring to you said Scampini area and
Black River Street or Granite Street
yeah, I mean, just based on the topography there, I don't know if it would work out like this. Because the elevation is more friendly to development than those areas. I'm assuming that's.
Yeah, certainly the western side of 302 is a lot more low-lying, so the challenge gets that much greater.
And more houses that you'd have to take down.
And conversely, the house is most at risk for re-disaster.
But you could do both.
Yes, absolutely. I think, especially if the community wants
When the plan evolves, as you mentioned, I won't be sitting here when it's done 10 years, no way. But I'd be happy to give it a start, and you could take a phased approach. Mitigation is not a one-year deal.
Right.
It's, as you just said, a decade-long journey.
Yeah, at best.
So, and I'm sure the folks who live along Berlin and Scampini Square would want to hear that as well, is that, there is something for them, and what it might mean for them initially as the city masses some of these projects to their grand list. We may have areas of the city that are more prone to buyout and are ready for redevelopment at a future date.
Yeah, this certainly could be the stepping stone to get more buyout and a larger area being included. But you kind of have to think about what's realistic initially and not get overwhelmed by trying to do it all.
So Higby?
Yeah, thanks. I did look at a package, so I'm ill-prepared to probably ask the right questions, but as you're talking about dwellings, did you have a target household income in mind, a target population, without saying affordable, saying something specific, like the number of dwellings that would be for households that are at poverty versus other related levels? We have a real problem here and there.
Right. We haven't gone to that level of detail yet, but in our general thinking is that you really need a mix of income levels and property values and everything for it to be a sustainable community. We don't want this to all be high-end homes. We don't want it all to be affordable housing. It has to be a nice mix to create a long-term community.
Right, and I do think, I feel strongly that we have to stay away from using that word affordable because that really means something different for many different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to you, Joanna, if there's a question online.
Yeah, from Jim.
Hi, this is actually Danielle Ogarski. I'm a resident of Barre City. I'm also the chair of our River Access Task Force. And my previous position was as a watershed planner with the state. So I've actually worked on a lot of these projects in other communities in the past 7 years or so. And so I think some things that we might need to consider, knowing this is a conceptual design, knowing this is like very preliminary, I think what's more important is for us to focus on a watershed study. So within the limits of the city, but also upstream outside of the limits of the city, looking at our infrastructure and developing an alternatives analysis where maybe this is a spot potentially we focus on, but then there's the opportunity to look at other areas that we could focus on as well that may also be pressure release valves. Infrastructure such as undersized culverts, undersized bridges. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity that before we focus in on one small area, especially knowing the potential issues with focusing on this area, we should look larger. And then one other thing I'd like to plug is the Barre City Diversity Equity Committee developed a tool that actually was developed by the state of Vermont. And then we took it and customized it to Barre City. And the tool is called the Equity Impact Assessment Tool. So I think any type of projects or analysis we do should utilize that tool because that will help us look at, I think, what Sue touched on and what other folks have touched on throughout the night in terms of, things like income equality, environmental justice, those types of things. But there's a number of questions that should help us to evaluate that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight as well.
Thank you, Danielle.
Can I?
Yeah, Secretary Moore? Yeah.
I'll steal Doug's chair. Just to the point about a watershed scale study, that's something we are interested in as well and have submitted a letter to the congressional delegation. There's a funding opportunity under the Water Resources Development Act that would allow us to do a basin-wide study in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers. And there are several of these studies that have been done, mostly in the Midwest post-major flood, but are hopeful that that is another set of resources that may be brought to bear, and it would cover the whole of the Winooski River Basin. I think Danielle raises some really important points about being able to understand the benefits and the impacts of different decisions we make, whether it's riparian area or floodplain restoration, bridge and culvert replacement, some of the major dam and flood control facilities that are already online in the Winooski watershed. We know that it never rains the same way twice, so there's a bit of needing to kind of look at a range of different scenarios, but that is another piece of this puzzle and work that would go on in parallel with what's being discussed here tonight.
Thank you, Secretary Moore. Joellen Calderera?
Can you put the last slide back up, please?
And Joellen, I'll just restate your question so people online can hear.
So I'm one of the houses where the yellow multi-family units is being proposed. I'm the one with the big backyard, big brick house, big piece of land. Those multi-units that you're showing in the back, where is the water property there? I mean, there's a wetland back there, a very large wetland, and I don't see it on any of the maps.
Yeah, that's actually, where you see the four small buildings is that conservation area. And, at this point, we haven't had enough time to find out all the specifics of these pieces of land. So whether that's a viable piece of property or not,
Probably isn't.
it may or may not be, but it's a large parcel, so we kind of honed in on it.
Yeah, it's a large parcel. So I'm gonna just put something out there. This was a little bit shocking for me to see, and I've been involved, on some of the levels of some discussions. I will tell you, for the people that are on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street, they're more prepared to see something like this. But the homes on Beckley Street that only had basement water are gonna be shocked to see this. And just, I don't, like when you mentioned it might be on CNN and it'd be good to, have you guys know about it. I think before it goes on CNN, we let the people on Beckley Street see it too.
Yeah, that actually builds on my question. So what data have you gathered directly from the landowners or tenants in these neighborhoods? Have you been involving them, or because a lot of the data we've gotten from the state has needed a lot of cleanup and a lot of door-to-door canvassing to true it up to what reality is. And so I'm curious just how you has there been any involvement of the residents in these neighborhoods today?
I can start and then let maybe Doug speak to some of the data questions as well. I think we're sort of in this chicken and egg phase, right? Where want to have something that people can have a conversation around. There is absolutely data collection that's been done looking at impacts and needs of homeowners and renters in this neighborhood, as well as all of the flood impacted areas of the state, to make sure we're understanding where folks are in their recovery and next steps. But you're right, there's a mutually, I think, agreed to need to get into the neighborhood and talk directly with folks that are living there currently about what their vision for the future is too. And it's just, this is, as everyone's indicated, a first step in bringing forward a concept and hopefully giving a basis for those conversations, but I appreciate fully the need to have them. And I don't know, Doug, if you want to add any on the data side.
I mean, on the data side, as Joellen said, a lot of the data is concentrated around First, Second, Third Street being the heaviest damaged areas. But if you look at it from a flood risk perspective, yes, we had to draw the line somewhere to start, and I honestly feel like it would have been inappropriate for us to start directly engaging with the citizens in the neighborhood before talking to city leadership. So that's one reason we didn't directly engage with people, because I think that would have probably freaked them out and felt like we were, really coming at them very strongly. We really presenting this as an initial concept that the lines could move, the lines need to move to match what the community wants to do. And yes, I think it is a longer process of making sure that the people in those neighborhoods want that change to happen and are okay with it. We'd be using a voluntary buyout approach. So if people don't want the buyout, then the project wouldn't be able to move forward. And that's fine. Like the governor said, we would support the concept, support what the community wants to do. And then if the community doesn't want to move forward, then we would take a step back. I think the challenge that the city is going to face is that some people are going to want the buyouts and some people aren't. And then you're left with a Swiss cheese neighborhood, right? And that's what is very hard to deal with for a municipality. So that's the problem that we're trying to help with. But yes, it does have to be approached, and it has to really get into those, neighborhood by neighborhood conversations.
I see two hands raised, Councilor Wasilla, Councilor Stockwell, then Sean Trader. I'll look back to you, Joellen.
Yeah, and so this is kind of, I hear and agree with you that if the state just showed up and went into neighborhoods without any coordination, that wouldn't work. But I think there's a space between that situation and coming with a bunch of maps about how we develop the north end, because we just heard that there's this wasn't warned as, hey, public, come give input on these ideas, and we already have folks expressing concern for what's going to happen in their neighborhoods moving forward. So what I really want to, and maybe this is a question for Secretary Moore, or I don't really know, maybe I don't know, but we have this, there's the Barre up process through VCRD that's active right now, and I indicated Secretary Moore because you're on the board of VCRD, so you know what good public engagement, community input processes look like. And so what I'm most interested in, because yes, these designs are going to change a million times by the time we decide what we're going to do. So the details that I'm most interested are in how many public hearings are we going to have? What are the timeline for those public meetings? What's the plan for that direct outreach to the folks who live there now? What's the plan to address folks when we're going into the construction thing? What are we going to do with those residents in between when we knock down houses and when we build new housing? So those are all, but more so than the actual details or maps or proposed developments. Those are the details that I want to know about, because without that information, we can't have a plan. And so that is there a plan? Are there ideas for those things? How many public meetings? What are we going to do for public input? What's the public outreach going to look like?
So,
or conversely, is it just up to us to figure out how to do that?
No, I would, no, it's definitely not just up to Barre to determine that. What I would say is the part that's up to Barre right now is whether or not you're interested in moving forward and exploring this concept. If you are, then the state would support the process of robust public engagement and creating that schedule, creating that process, so that we could put that process in front of you to see if that process meets your expectations. But we're not gonna, honestly, we're not gonna go to the work of creating a really detailed schedule of public outreach and engagement if you haven't even said yes yet. right, that you're interested in exploring it. So that was basically the next step, is that the state would put resources towards building that really in-depth public engagement strategy. So you can say, okay, we know no one's voice is going to be ignored in this process. We can feel comfortable about moving forward.
Yeah, and I agree, like, that's the linchpin for me, is that, like, I'm a yes with moving forward, as long as we know how that community input is going to work, what that process is going to look like, and that we don't have tearing down grandma's house. Right, so in the regional context of looking at different areas of the rivers that flooded this last time around, the Barre, Waterbury, Barre, Berlin, Montpelier kind of stretch, it kind of merits one full-time person to try to coordinate the conversations and the support of that. So as part of the recovery team, I am going to have someone that's very focused on the Washington County River corridor for the Winooski. And the biggest part of their job would be making sure that all of the public input and all of the public engagement that needs to happen happens properly. Thank you.
I have a theoretical question, mostly to do with the river. So if you move the road up and the major route becomes up, then it leaves you with Main Street. And could you alter the Main Street road so that it becomes more of a buffer for the river, and that you can experiment with like pocket swales or increased culverts so that the water is less likely to go across the road?
Yeah, this is a civil question, an architecture question.
Yes, I mean, I think there are all sorts of design options as you're re-envisioning that space. Certainly, we have examples of places where in Franklin and Lamoille County, as part of an earlier section of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, there was a railroad embankment that actually kind of held the river in place. We lowered the embankment in some places so the river could actually flow across it and access a floodplain that existed on the other side, not unlike the design shown here. Other places, we were unable to lower the embankment, but installed large diameter culverts to allow that same sort of ability for the river to move back and forth. So I think all of those components would be part of the conversation as we're moving forward and thinking about what that future design condition looks like. But there are a lot of strategies, as you've alluded to, for ways to take full advantage of flood storage that might be created through this sort of approach, and not have the road or the railroad serve as a berm that then is overtopped in a much more catastrophic way.
Thank you.
Sean Trigger, then John.
Okay. Question. There is talk of co-design, collaborative design, reaching out, etc. But I thought I heard a threat of a Swiss cheese neighborhood. Okay, the second question is, would the developers and the council be willing to negotiate a mandatory minimum of affordable housing? And when we say affordable, yes, we will set that bar quite low. Because the reality is that poverty has a hold of this city in ways that you don't even know. We gotta do something. And unless this housing project has a verifiable amount of affordability and accessibility, I'm not interested.
So just to restate for people online, you're asking about how does this co-design potentially interface with a Swiss cheese result and a request that there be an affordability component to the project.
Yeah. So, thank you, Sean. So let me explain my Swiss cheese comment, and I probably ran by that a little bit fast. So if a project doesn't happen, so status quo right now for municipalities in Vermont after a flood is that individual homeowners have to come forward and express whether or not they're interested in a buyout. And then the municipality is placed in the position of whether or not the municipality wants to agree to that buyout. So it's parcel by parcel, and it's a very, very difficult decision for the municipality and there's no counterbalancing overall plan. So my Swiss cheese comment was meant to just represent, if we don't engage in any project, the difficulty that the city of Barre is going to be placed with under just the status quo, how buyouts are approached, which is why we generally try to support a community in having you know, a holistic approach to a neighborhood, and you know, communities also do that on their own, of course. But I think the very nature of how buyouts are structured, just as a baseline level, it creates that risk of the city being placed in an awkward position, and some owners being interested in buyouts and some not, and then you have, it's just a very difficult position for the city. So I wasn't threatening anything there. I was just intending to say that right now, people are coming forward asking about buyouts, and some people are interested and some people aren't. And so I think that the city's already being faced with that dilemma right now.
Yeah, and I just to sort of reframe that as well, you know, Councilor Wozniak's point, Grandma would have to sign up to have the house participate in this. So, you know, I think Doug's just getting at how that all comes together as a cohesive plan. As far as affordability requirements, I think that would, you know, any whether it's inclusionary zoning or just sort of including multifamily, or rather varying income levels within a development, I think that would all be up to the city as part of the plan. I'd say right now the city uses that discretion in their bylaws and their zoning, and the state would certainly participate in that, in how it funds the projects, but ultimately that would largely be led by the community. But there would certainly be an element of mixed income that would have to be a part of this. And you know, another item that I was at the Barre Up Forum as well, and another item that I heard loud and clear is that making sure senior housing is expanded and available is something to take into account. These are all things that are possibilities here. I don't think the state would mandate anything. I think we're here to help the community see what's possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrell. I have Joan, you're next, right?
I'm Grandma. Put my name to it if you want. So in a traditional buyout, I would come and say, listen, you know, my house has been hit twice, and so I really want to consider, you know, the buyout process. That also includes a 25% cost at my expense unless it's paid for by someone else. Now, it also takes into account the value of my house the day before the flood. With the cost of housing now, a new starter home, if you go up to like what I call Pleasantville, just up the hill, is $360,000. So the value of my home, which is the big brick house, on that big piece of lot that has the water, I own that waterway in the back, the wetland. You know, my value is not going to be $360,000 the day before the flood. So if you want buy-in and not the Swiss cheese, there's going to have to be more incentive than a standard mitigation buyout for these houses that are on Beckley, the ones that are not really the ones that were heavily impacted. I still think, like was mentioned by Jake, there needs to be discussion about those homes on Vine Street that were heavily impacted. First, second, and third, totally. Those homes, you know, have first floor waterway damage, but we have to also discuss, there's a whole section of area that we aren't talking about that has first floor water in their home more than one time. The houses that you want to put the multi-unit properties on have only had basement water.
So they have Amy Gelford, Bern Rose, and then Sue. I just want to jump in a little bit ahead of time and say, I suspect we're absolutely in the yes and mode of cooperation, and excited by the prospect of new housing.
Even grandma is.
Even grandma, yeah. Even grandma. Because, and, you know, I mentioned this last time we were here, the city, we face some very serious trend lines that are concerning, and the highest municipal tax rate in the state. We have $60 million in capital needs, a public works garage with the ceiling caving in. We have water, wastewater system that's 100-year-old and needs major investments, rolling stock needs, buildings and facilities all over the city. that need major repairs. We've been losing households, as our Commissioner Farrell mentioned last time. We've been losing population. We had an anemic grand list growth. We need to grow the grand list because under our system of governance, it's the only way we sustain vital public services. And the reality is that City Hall's pretty lean on middle management and project management to do complex redevelopment, planning, redevelopment projects. So this partnership with the state, I think, is essential. If you're asking, is this concept interesting to the city? It's definitely interesting to me. And I would love to see more flood impacted neighborhoods included in the concept areas. I would love to see more like Riverside flood mitigation. And that goes from homes all the way up by, I can never think of that street name, behind EF Wall. There were 2 homes there just totally flooded. River Street homes were so impacted. A lot of homes on Granite Street. So I think there's a great, I'd love to see a bigger scope. And I'd love to see an opportunity where we can build homes in open spaces without that in-between spot where we have to demo something and then we rebuild something, and then there's this rehousing moment where are people going to go? Because there's no give in the marketplace. Even in this affordable frontier of Washington County, in the community that's within the Chittenden County commuter shed, there's just no give. And so absolutely, totally excited by this, excited by the principles that you laid out. I would love to see even bigger scope and that the concept get a little bit more grounded in some of the nuances like Joanne's talked about. It's not just like a wetland, like is it a wetland, is it a wetland, it's a swamp.
It is.
Yeah.
It's actually good, it's a park, I think, technically next to it.
Yeah.
The Army Corps did it, so it's all real efficient.
So Amy Gelford, Burn Rose, back to Sue and then Ellen K.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, my comments are also a sort of broadening the scope. So when the diagrams first came up, just to make sure I was oriented, I pulled up an online map. And I don't know if any of the other diagrams have a bigger view, but when I look at the area, kind of the public safety building and the numbered streets, I'm immediately drawn to the square footage, square mileage that's across the other side of North Main Street. Just in terms of the things that usually jump out to me when I think about stormwater. So we have a lot of granite sheds that are have big metal rooftops. There's a lot of runoff there. There's a lot of parking lots, roads, that sort of thing, and some particularly tricky and flood-prone parts of the river that we've talked about at some of the meetings about the tight curves around the other side of 2nd Street. So I also look at this, and there's a lot of state property, the state roads, there's the railroad, so there's kind of bigger entities, and I wonder if there's any piece for modifying any of those. And just looking at the broader map, I look all the way to where 62 turns into 14 and connects with 302. That was one of the areas that flooded really badly. And I think that needs some attention, and there's housing there. So I think just broadening out the scope. There's also the granite shed area between Berlin Street and Blackwell Street. Smith Street flooded last weekend with the rain that we got. We didn't get that hard of a rain, but I drove through the rain on Smith Street, leaving my neighborhood, and said, I'm not sure I should have driven through that in my little car. So there's still ongoing flood issues in different parts of the North End. And again, I understand that those are privately owned properties, but and there might be issues about would any of them be interested in buyouts or modifications. But on the other hand, when I look at the number of properties you have to interact with and like the square footage bang for your buck, like there's a lot fewer owners to negotiate with when it's a few giant commercial properties as opposed to a whole lot of smaller properties. So just throwing that out. I have no idea if that's harder or easier, but just jumping out at me, there's fewer larger area property owners on the other side of Main Street. And then one thing that hasn't come up is what are we doing about the public works garage? So we don't have a choice about doing something about the public works garage. That was true before the flood. Now it's been flooded. And I would love to see some solution that also takes care of the giant price tag and the looming need for the public works garage for the city. Is there anything we can do in partnership with the state transportation department, who also had a flooded transportation facility? We already have AOT downtown Barre. Can we find a creative way to somewhere build a joint public works garage and district V-Trans garage? I don't know, but I haven't heard the public works garage come up, and I think that I would love to see as part of the solution. It may not technically be in the north end, but I think it's to think about for the solution.
Thank you for your comments, Amy. Would you care to, not the end?
Yeah, I would say that this definitely wasn't intended to be a holistic, presentation on what we think Barre's recovery needs are. We know that you're going to have multiple projects that we need to work with you on. So I do think as we move forward, we can start to identify what those various projects are, what those various neighborhoods are, and try to move a lot of those forward. Like, it really does depend on which parts of Barre we need to work on. And I do remember the public works garage being mentioned before as a concern. So I think yes and, right? I think this is definitely an area to focus on, but there's also been multiple other areas that I think will make sense.
Bern?
Hi, I'm Bern Rose. I just really want to thank Danielle and Amy for their comments. Danielle, in regards to the river and how the river flows through Barre. Also surrounding Barre is Barrytown in Berlin. And there's a lot of development going on in that community, which impacts the city of Barre directly as we're eating up our permeable space. We are increasing the water flow through Barre City. And when I heard that one of our neighboring communities was refusing to be in compliance with the stormwater, handling of stormwater, I was really concerned about how much on the top of Beckley Hill. If you drive up Beckley Hill, you'll see development after development after development. And where does all the water from that come? It comes down into Barre, and we're having to deal with it. So I'd like to see that. The person sitting behind you, the woman who spoke, you're wearing a yellow sweater. I can see you. Sophia, thank you. I appreciate what you talked about, the entire watershed. And I think that that's going to be really important. And thank you for being here. And I'm on board, and I hope to hear more from you.
That takes us back to Sue.
Thank you. So one of the things that hasn't been put out there is what's going to make the strongest proposal to the federal government? What would make them actually look and think? And I really do feel strongly that it's not just the regional flood resilience, which is essential, but it is the fact that we would be providing regional housing to a variety of incomes, many of which are not currently served and without homes. And so I really feel like if you're going into the federal government, you want to really put together, assemble the strongest proposal. We would be dealing with both regional housing and regional resilience. And it's not just strictly Barre. And then the term Swiss cheese was used in a disparaging way, and I just wanted to say it's not that I'm going to defend certain varieties of cheese, but I will defend certain varieties of development. I don't think it's a good idea to have everything looking all alike from the same period. I actually think that neighborhoods are vibrant when they have a variety. So having those pockets and differences, a good thing, not a bad thing. So the Swiss cheese concept just seems odd.
I was referring to conserved land next to housing, next to conserved land. And that creates an awkward situation as far as there are still houses being flooded potentially. And so the value of that conserved land is reduced as well. So I wasn't referring to how different houses are developed.
And I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that, because that didn't come across, and now I have a better idea. Thank you.
And I actually wanted to add on to something you just mentioned in terms of the strength of a proposal to the federal delegation. It's something that Mayor Hemrick indicated, which is coming out of this with more housing. And in part, the reason that I think the team wanted to highlight this type of a concept is just to show that number of units right there. This would be around 225 units if you went with something like this. Obviously, this is not what's going to end up. Just highlighting that, even with all that green space, yes, that is losing 92 units of housing, and in place it's 225 units. This is not necessarily how it's going to happen. It's just displaying what could be possible in a city where that's desperately needed.
Mr. Stockwell?
I think we understand, this is an idea, it's a great idea, and we would be extremely foolish to walk away from this idea. And I just want to say, this is an excellent opportunity for Barre to move ahead and provide housing. And I don't want all of one kind of housing. I mean, I think in the past, Barre has begun, we'll take all the poor people and we'll put them over here. And there's no way out, right? There's no there aren't affordable homes that they can then buy. There's no path forward. So the variety of housing, to me, is very powerful. And yes, I hope that we have 20 to 25% of all the housing is affordable and offers a variety of ownership possibilities, like low-end condos. That'd be cool. But not to, I think it's in our hands, as it was for ARPA, to go to the city and say, here's what's possible, here's what we're thinking. So thank you for coming.
Councilor Deere?
Just want to say thank you guys for being here, really coming up with these concepts. And we know that they're just concepts, but we're talking about increasing the housing stock by 100 or 200%, as well as making things more flood resilient for the next 10-year storm. So really the fact that you guys are bringing all this with little information just provides a lot of positive sight that we're really looking for big and really trying to make sure that Barre's taken care of.
Okay, and then Sean? Ellen?
Hi. Thanks. Ellen K, Barre City. I echo the comments from many others who have just spoken, so I won't repeat them about mixed housing, housing for unhoused folks, all of that stuff. I also just want to compliment you all, council, and maybe Teddy, for the excellent sound. That first time
Thank God.
Whether they're at the mic or not. So this is amazing. Thank you. I from the beginning of this, I've been cautioning about what's called disaster capitalism. The developers see a disaster as an opportunity. So I want to be that voice once again, right, that many of us will be watching, and hope that there are serious guardrails around making profit off of misery, seeing a disaster as opportunity. And so I hope this plan and that the governor and the state will pay close attention to make sure that this is for our community. Not to profit it up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sean Trader?
Can I go to the mic? Sean from the Rainbow Bridge. Sorry, I don't want to be a pickle in the pudding, but it's just that I was here tonight on behalf of Yvonne. She's a friend, a constituent, and a person in our town who is housing insecure. And I just want to make sure that the same level of excitement and energy about the idea of a collaboration from federal, state, city to create housing, I want to make sure y'all bring that same energy to what we have right now. Because we have housing authorities in this city that are giving people eviction notices for missing their rent by 2 weeks. And that's not to discuss all of the other homeless and displaced people. So just bring this energy to investing in the human-centered infrastructure that we already have in place, because we know this is a decade project.
Thank you. I think we're there. In the back, last word.
All right, my name is Stephen Mudd. What I have to say is totally minuscule to what you guys are talking about, but I have to get it out because it's been going on since our birthday's August 9th. Shortly after that, my next door neighbor, he brought all 4 of his trash cans out, put them on the sidewalk, right next to my property, and they are still there to this night. I've asked him why you moved them from your side of your house and they're living here. Well, as soon as he said it, I knew it was a lie because he put them out in the street. He said it was people coming down his street, and he's on Shortland. It's not that long. We're coming in and putting trash in his, and I told him, put them back and you tell them it's against the law to do that. Nothing. 3 weeks later, I asked him again. This time, it was, my landlord told us to put them there. There's no other place for them. I've lived next door to that house for 20 years. And they've always put them in the back. But if you look out back, where there's a, what do you call it? A tar patch where a car could park, where he used to put his cars. There is like at least 15 bicycles there. And then there's a carport, and right next to it is a space. Where there is a car that's not running, I got a picture to show you, you're gonna see things you really don't want. Lawn chairs, tables, you name it, it's there. That's where they can put their trash cans. And I called and asked the person that used to live there, and that's where they used to put them. But you can't get there. So it's like, my question is it legal for you to leave your trash cans on the sidewalk 24/7?
I believe our ordinances do not allow trash cans on the sidewalk 24/7, but what I would ask you to do is connect with the Assistant City Manager, Don Monahan, and we can check with what the minimum housing standards ordinance, I believe, has some provisions on solid waste locations, and there may be something in our street sidewalks.
Yeah, they're allowed to be brought out the morning before or the night before, and then they have to go back in afterwards. So, and we do have code enforcement officers that if you'll give Ms. Monahan the addresses, that we can get it passed along to them.
Because my landlord got into it, and he can't find the landlord. He's having a problem finding.
Okay, well, we have a rental registry, so we know who the landlords are and how to get in touch with them.
That's what I'm thinking. He's lying again.
Yeah.
He puts them out front so that the neighbors don't put it in. But you're on Shortland Street and traffic goes by.
Yeah. Would you be willing to connect with Don over here in the?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm done.
All right. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, any last words from the state team? Thank you. Gosh, it's exciting.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I guess I have one question.
Councilor Wilson.
Well, obviously, thank you. Thank you for all of your time. Because all of you have spent a lot of time in Barre since July 11th. And Governor, we'll get to mowing Denny Park. They assured me, I know you're proud of it, and you should be, it looks great. But we haven't talked about next steps, right? I mean, who is going to, I'm excited, I'm ready to get to work, I'd like to move forward. You know, I understand these are all concepts, and grandma's not gonna like them, and someone's niece isn't gonna like them, and, you know, we gotta have a lot of conversations before we pull this. So I just wanna know, where do we start, when do we get going?
So, I'm very close to, and when I say very close, I mean probably a couple work days from identifying what the full-time point of contact will be for this project on the state side to provide as much support as the community and the city wants. as far as setting up what Teddy was talking about with the community engagement strategy, making sure that that is fully fleshed out and fully to the satisfaction of the city, trying to make sure that we are identifying the various areas that the city wants us to focus on and seeing how we can adjust our proposals, maybe breaking it up into several different projects that we might be thinking about and kind of prioritizing those projects. So as soon as I have that full-time contact information, which should be very soon, I can reach out and give that to the city office. And that can start the communication back and forth to start coordinating public events and start making sure that we're rolling out public engagement through the city and with the city's full awareness and approval. Anything to add there, Governor? Sorry.
No, as Doug had said, we want your involvement. We'd like to hear what you have to say as well, and we want the community to be involved in this process. And we will be appointing someone on a regional basis that will be focusing on Barre, but there's other, there's Berlin and Montpelier and Waterbury as well. So we will be sharing that resource and having someone as a point person so that we can get something to the congressional delegation. So that's going to be very important. As I said before, Senator Sanders has said, we got to strike while the iron's hot and make sure that we get to the front of the line as quick as possible. So if we can come up with some sort of broad concept and a dollar figure that they can go into these negotiations with, the sooner the better, from my standpoint. And then it doesn't mean we have to work out every single detail, but just in concept, whether this is the approach we'd like to take. And if you'd like to move forward with it, then we can bring it to them and get them involved as well, so that they're fully, we need the congressional delegation, federal, state, local communities all working together on this and pulling in the same direction if we're going to accomplish this. This is a big ask. This is a big deal. And when you think about the dynamic, how this could change the community, especially from my standpoint, a gateway into Barre. I mean, this is broad, and it could be very impactful, not just for the neighborhoods, but for the city at large, and the economic vitality and the welcoming nature of this could be far-reaching. So looking forward to it. I'm excited about it, and hopefully you are as well, and we'll work together on it.
Thank you so much, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your leadership through many crises. So we still have, I think, a few more items for visitor and communication. I know, Juliana, you're here for visitors and communications.
Sorry, I tried.
That's hard to follow up, Governor.
Well, you never know. I love coming to city council meetings because you never know what you walk into. This was amazing.
Let's come more often.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just stopped in to let the council know officially that there's a vacancy at the BUSD.
No, it's beyond here with more than fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Juliana Cecchinelli, Chair of the BUSD. So I just wanted to explain the timeline. Tomorrow, the information will go out in the Times-Argus looking for a candidate, and then it'll be posted for 2 weeks. That will bring us to our board meeting on November 8th, where we will select an individual to finish the term, and then if that person chooses to apply for the 3-year term coming in March.
So, and the process calls for people to submit a letter of interest to me.
Yes.
By noon on the 7th, the day before the board meeting.
Correct.
The main reason why the letters of interest come to me is that I confirm that they are registered voters, because they have to be a registered voter to hold the position. I've already received a few. They can come via hard copy or email, and that information is all in the notice that will be posted in the Times-Argus.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for that announcement, and also please express our appreciation to Ben Moore for his service on the school board. I know he's has to move out of town, is gonna have a much shorter commute, which is probably gonna be good for him and his wife, but we appreciate his service.
Will do. Thank you.
Are there any other items for visitors and communication? This is an opportunity to speak to any item that is not on the agenda tonight otherwise.
It's a quick question. Is there any reason they couldn't leave the boards here that people can come in and look at?
Well, it's their property, so
Well, no, I asked them and they said, well, who do we ask?
My guess is, I'm looking at Manager Storelli Castro, my guess is that he will make sure that the presentations, the PDF presentations are posted, the PowerPoint.
Yeah, they'll be put up on the website, correct?
And I would but to Steve's point, I would encourage you, I don't know if you need a motion to spend a couple $100 on printing, but having copies of those at City Hall that folks who are less internet inclined may want to.
We can always make them on demand.
Yeah, right.
Or they could be put in the hallway.
Yeah.
Just another point of access for.
All right, if there are no other items for visitors and communication, that takes us to our consent agenda. Tonight we have approval of the minutes of the special city council meeting of Tuesday, October 17, 2023. We have the city warrants for the week of October 25th, 2023. We have no licenses or permits tonight, but we do have some volunteer resignations. David Huff, I cannot remember that. Huff, yeah. The Ward 2 Development Review Board member, Joanne Reynolds, Transportation and Public Works Committee, Erica Rail, Transportation and Public Works Committee, a modification of Jamie Bowers Development Review Board appointment from an at-large seat to a vacant Ward 2 seat. I presume that's to provide more flexibility for filling an at-large seat, and then to appoint Arthur Young as a deputy health officer, as well as the downtown vibrancy grant, which we'll take up separately since I have a conflict of interest.
And I'll just note that the manager nodded in confirmation when they
Okay.
mentioned moving Jamie to the.
And just so everybody knows, Arthur Young is our new electrical inspector, started last week, I believe. So he'll be working closely with Nick Copping, who is our fire marshal.
So does that mean the electrical permits will then resume back at the city level versus being done by the state fire marshal?
Only on the single-family home level. Everything else is done on the state level.
Okay. I thought single-family homes were exempt from electrical.
I don't know. Now I'm looking to Janet, who may or may not still. There she is.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. With Arthur back on board, we are back to all permitting of all types of buildings through every city and not through the state anymore. So, thank you.
Thanks for that clarification. All right, so is there a motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda without that downtown vibrancy grant. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Council Booton?
A motion to, is there?
So move.
And a second? Sure. All right, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And I'm passing around, there's 2 copies of the signature page, if you just sign both and then get it back to me.
So just the first one?
No.
Yeah.
You'll be the death of me. I'm gonna quit when she starts behaving.
So that takes us to the clerk and treasurer report.
Just 2 quick things. First of all, a continuing reminder that the second quarter property taxes are due by November 15th. So we're 3.5 weeks away from that. And a reminder to those sitting up here that the Board of Civil Authority and the Board of Abatement are meeting tomorrow evening. We're meeting first to finalize the property tax assessment appeal reports. And then the Board of Abatement will meet to talk about, as we continue to develop our process for hearing abatement requests for flood-related properties. So we'll work on that tomorrow. Oh, I thought you were reaching for my candy.
Yeah, that does look tasty. That does.
So that's all I have.
All right, are there any questions for the clerk treasurer? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us to our city manager's report. And we send good vibes for your COVID.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been kicking my butt a little bit. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates. One is a positive update that we were able to remove a red tag on Kinney Place. As I mentioned to the council at our last meeting, we had to red tag a home there due to landslide concerns. The homeowner made some modifications to the home to prevent danger to the residents in case of a catastrophic event. Code enforcement reviewed it, and luckily we were able to remove that red tag. So that's 4 units back online. Very grateful to work in partnership with the homeowner, and lucky to be able to get some people back into their homes. Number 2 is a reminder to residents that they have until October 31st to use the Barrytown yard waste disposal site for any yard waste. So make sure that folks take advantage of that. They have about a week to go to use that site. And finally, very appropriate for me to be sharing, we're having a free COVID and flu vaccine clinic in partnership with the state and Waterbury Ambulance Services. This will be held on November 8th, Wednesday, November 8th at Spalding High School from 4 to 8 p.m. So make sure you get your COVID shot. You do not want COVID. And I had my shot already, but here I am anyhow. But get it anyhow, it could have been worse. So the information is also up on our website for people who are interested in the clinic.
Thanks. Are there any questions for the city manager?
Yes.
Councilor
Nicholas, when Chief Flood Recovery Officer Barnum was here this evening, it reminded me of this question. When he was in the last time, he talked about 50 homes in the city of Barre that did not have heat. And I asked Mr. Barnum if he could follow up with you or follow up with public safety. I understand we don't publicize those addresses, but I was just hoping that maybe that the city could get those addresses so that as the weather gets colder, we've got a little bit of a reprieve this week, but it's going to be in the 30s in the evening next week. I was hoping that we could do wellness checks. Has there been any movement on that issue? Did you get that list, and have we been working with folks?
Counselor, I did not get that list from Doug, but I will be sure to reach out to him in the morning to follow up to see if we can get that quickly. And I think now with full code enforcement team back on, I think we'll be able to do those wellness checks. So I will follow up with Doug first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
The state is doing wellness calls weekly.
I'm sorry?
The state is actually they are reaching out weekly to us.
Mm-hmm.
To the people on that list.
Right.
So I know
but
you
when
guys
the temperature gets to 30 degrees, I simply want
Correct.
public safety to be able
Correct.
to do wellness checks.
But I just want to let you guys know that they should be able to give it to you. But they are continually using the tax people are reaching out by phone now every week.
Thank you.
Good to know. Helpful to have plenty of checks. So, I've got Manager Shirley, I have one question about Patterson Avenue. I was just curious what the future of that's going to be. I noticed there's still what appears to be a landslide coming down from above and then a little bit happening from below. Is that just in a monitoring state right now?
Yeah, so that's one of the sites that Sanborn Head is reviewing. We have not received that report yet.
Okay.
So we are waiting their analysis. That's going to be a desktop review, so it'll be quicker. But we will based on what that says, we will proceed with either mitigation or some other, whatever other measures they recommend for stabilization there. But we're awaiting the report.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
If there are no other questions for the city manager, that takes us to our first item of new business, which is a volunteer appointment for a new development review board member. We have the applicant Krista Murray.
Online.
Hi Krista, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mayor?
I've also had a bit of a cough, but getting better. So this is I think it's, I don't know how many years this term is. I suspect it's probably a 2-year term, is that right?
I don't know, Janet would likely know, and she's coming on.
The RB terms are 4 years.
4 years.
She would be filling a term that's probably underway.
So it's a 4-year unexpired term for the Ward 1 seat. Okay. Well, it's Krista, welcome. If you just want to share a little bit about your motivations for being on the DRB. One standard question, well, I should say it should be more standard, but we often ask people if they've attended a meeting before.
Thank you. So I was going to, but this past one, but it ended up that I had another engagement. And the next one isn't until December. So I wouldn't be able to attend until then. I have reviewed the meetings, agendas and notes from afterwards to get kind of an understanding of, how it operates. And so why I would like to join is because I would like to become more involved with kind of the development and the areas in which the board reviews. I was previously on the dog park committee, and then that kind of fizzled. So this had an opening when, I saw the posting about it, and then I talked to Linda Shambo about it as well. And, she thought it would be a great opportunity for me to get back into, serving on a committee, or in this case, a board.
Well, thank you for that. And one thing that's really important with this particular body is that you notify Janet if you're not able to make a meeting, but really make every effort to attend, because there's so many statutory notification processes that it's really difficult for applicants who are expecting a hearing on a particular night to have a quorum of the DRB. Do you have any reservations about that?
No, I would make every possible effort to join, because I do realize, having to wait, longer than a month to get something like that approved would be a challenge for folks.
Council, do you have any questions for Krista?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve by Council Lozon, second by Council Booten. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you for your interest in serving. And I'll have to say, I've been going to the dog park more now that I have a pup. And I mowed the small dog side. And so if you ever want to, have a volunteer day, I also took my drill up and fixed the hinges on the door. So if you ever want to have a volunteer day, let me know. We can get up there and maybe we can reboot the volunteer crew. So.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your time tonight.
All right, thanks, Krista.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So that takes us to a reduction of the size of the Parks and Recreation and the Transportation Public Works Committee to 9 to 5 members to allow for a quorum. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second. Third.
Motion by Council Booten, second by Council Lozon. Is there any discussion on this? Is it relatively easy to increase? I mean, we can do that just as easily as we're decreasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems weird when we're limiting citizen participation, even though I know that's not what we're doing. We've had trouble filling the seats, which has created quorum issues.
Mm-hmm.
But, if there was another way, my preference would be not to. but I don't want to make it difficult for the committees to function either. That's why I'm supporting it.
Neither of them are in ordinance or charter, so they don't require any.
Special notice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got a question. Couldn't it change the ordinance just where quorum could be the members present?
Accessibility.
That would be weird, because what if you only had one person show up? Then they'd be like, queen or king for a day.
I'm just throwing suggestions out there.
I'm gonna have a special meeting of the police advisory committee.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea, but I just want to make it clear if there are folks who are sitting on the fence and they think that, gee, I was gonna apply to Parks and Recreation, but now I'm not because it's full. Don't necessarily feel that way if all of a sudden we got 4 Parks and Recreation aficionados to step up. I'd just as soon go back to 9, but.
Good question. All right, so we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries. That'll help that those groups start meeting again. So that takes us to upcoming business. And I think we had a couple of things that were on last agenda that didn't quite make it to this meeting agenda. Do you want to give us a preview, Nicholas?
Yeah, I think I've gotten, the housing recommendations from just about every council member. So if those who haven't sent those in can get those to me, I'll make sure that those come on, and that can certainly be part of a discussion topic. Expecting to have the second reading of the ADU bylaw amendments as well for the next council meeting on the agenda.
Okay. Anything else, Councilor want to preview? All right. Good evening, Susan. All right. If there's no other previews for upcoming business, that takes us to roundtable, and I'll start with our Ward 1 Councilor Chabelle.
I'm amazed isn't the word, but I am so grateful for our guests who came tonight and gave us this offer, because we can use it really well, and I think it is, just what Councilor Stockwell said, a huge opportunity, and Barre deserves that.
Thank you. Councilor Lozon.
Thank you. I mean, how can you not be excited by this? But we have to realize that, number one, this is conceptual. First thing I thought of is, as you're doing all of this, where are the people who live there now going to go? So you probably start with one rather large building, maybe the 80-unit building that they talked about on one end, the bookend. Maybe you start there. But with any great project, and for those of us who have ever planned anything of size and have done anything of value, you very seldom end up where you started. There's always compromise, there's always design issues. But we're gonna have to move quickly. I listened to the governor say repeatedly, the sooner the better. The sooner we get our plan to Washington, the better. And my biggest concern is that we're able to get out of our own way right now. So I just hope we all move forward understanding that no one's gonna get what they want. No one's gonna get 100% of their ideas taken seriously. Sean, I agree with you that we're gonna need to provide for housing for everyone. When I grew up in Barre a million years ago, there were people who were very affluent who lived in the North End, and there were people who weren't affluent at all. And we all played together. We all played football down by the public safety building. We all played together until someone's parent kicked us out of their house and made us go home, and we all got along. And that's why it was such a great neighborhood. And it still can be, but it's going to be a safer neighborhood as well, in terms of flood resiliency. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Lozon. Councilor Wozniak?
Yeah, my day job today took me up to Spalding Education Alternatives facility up on top of Allen Street for Farm to School Month. I was joking that it was the day of the secretaries in Barre, because we had Secretary Tebbets there as well. And I hadn't made my way up to that. I hadn't toured that facility before, and it was just amazing to see all of the stuff that the students there literally built with their own two hands. And the point of Farm to School, this event, it's Farm to School Month in October, and they were highlighting, universal school meals, which is lovely, but also the local purchasing incentives, Farm to School grants, and they had little capreses that were made with eggplants, basil, and tomato that were grown in the school garden with mozzarella cheese that was handmade in the school kitchen by the kids. And it was just such a cool event to see all of the stuff that they built flower beds, they built a greenhouse, they built what was called a bug hotel, which is giving bugs a place to winter so that they can have fresh pollinators there ready next spring. So it was just an awesome day. And it was great to see that facility and all of that work. And all of the money that's been flowing because of the Farm to School programs, really come to life. So it was just a very wholesome, lovely fall day. It was great to see.
Thanks. Councilor.
I have to say, I don't think we've had a governor come into the council chambers and present before. I don't think so.
Yes.
Really?
We have, not this governor.
No.
Governor Sean.
Yep. That was for.
But it was a drug bust.
Oh,
sorry, but that's what it was.
This is much better. That's pretty awesome. It's, conceptually, it looks great. There's, obviously things aren't gonna work out, how it's on paper. It's touching, Ward 2, which, I get a little, don't worry, I'm gonna get your back. I've been in communication with a couple people down at North Berry Manor, and I'm hopeful. I think we're looking in November to be down there, Nicholas. So I think it's certainly something that needs some attention. What's happening down there, I feel, it feels like it was 10 years ago, and that's unfortunate. But, with that, I'll pass.
Councilor Stockwell.
I also visited North Berry Manor, and I agree it needs some attention. And another issue is there is that it's not in an ideal location. There's not easy transportation. There's a bunch of issues with North Berry Manor, and the residents need to have a secure place with a lot of vibrant community around them. And so I was walking around River Street, and I just thought, I was really hoping that this project would be like, okay, and we'll do River Street, and we'll do Granite Street. But this is a great start. And we can do it piece by piece. We can build places, we can build residences in places where there isn't any place. And I think moving fast is really important. Keeping people included, but there are ways to do this that I think will be great opportunities for people in Barre. And just, thinking about what Sean was saying, it would be good to have code enforcement come back to the meetings and saying, here's where we are with looking at landlords, and here's what the issues are. I think that would be really helpful. With that, I'll pass.
Yes, Councilor Stockwell. Councilor Dean.
Again, just like the rest of you, I'm very thrilled about this project. Obviously, we know that it's in its infancy, and we have a lot of work to do to get this even started, let alone across the finish line. But I think that with diligent work and making sure that we do the things that we need to do in order to push this through, I think this can help out a lot of people and grow our grant list and really help mitigate a lot of the problems that we've seen over the last several years. On another positive note, we've got 2 playoff football teams, one for BYSA, our 7th and 8th graders took the 2nd seed, so they had a first round bye this last week. They will be hosting Fairfax this weekend. It's either going to be at Bonfield or at Spalding. We're still kind of fighting about the time and location of that date, but that'll be Saturday. But also Spalding High School was the number 6 seed. They're going down to Bellows Falls to play the Terriers. Definitely a tough matchup. We played them last year in the playoffs. Not a great outcome, but this year they have 3 wins instead of 1. So looking into this season, a whole lot better than last season. So really, if you can come out to Bellows Falls, come out and support the Spalding team. If not, I'd like to see people either bond or at Spalding for the 7th and 8th graders. With that, I'll pass.
Thanks, Councilor Deering. I'll just say that I thought the VCRD conversations were really good. Seemed like it was well attended and there were more flood impacted households present this time around, which I think is really important. I went to the infrastructure and planning session and Councilor Deering and Michelle Bell, Stockwell, we were in the session, and one thing that really stuck out to me is how much people were focused on, we want good data, we want good modeling, we want to understand what the river scientists have to say, and then we want to be able to imprint how that shapes decision making locally. And I think there are a lot of people who are excited about the opportunities in the coming decade for flood resilience, and looking at, like many of the things you talked about, Councilor Stockwell, elevated bridge, oversizing culverts, making our streets a little spongier than they are now with stormwater and street trees. So it's, I think it was an exciting conversation, and Secretary Moore joined that conversation as well. And I know I'm often, focus a lot on the tough trend lines facing the city, and I think they're tough things to face, but if we don't face reality and start to talk about really some of the very difficult trends that we're facing, we're never going to get ahead, and it's awesome to have the congressional delegation and the administration here, and the council goes on your point about working as a team. I think that's the only way we start to really make progress on the things that matter. I'm looking forward to the weeks and months ahead, and I know we're going to be talking about budget season soon. I meant to ask when that's going to start, but I can do that later.
Mayor, I think we're planning, and I don't know if Don's still in the room. I think we're planning for November 7th as sort of a kickoff budget conversation with sort of the high level picture that we're seeing. And then we'll go from there.
Great, and they're really excited also. I think this is an opportunity to bring some of the ideas that we have as city councilors and the different groups we represent and work with to come together and start putting together a rapid action plan, not only for this new North End project, but a lot of different projects that have been percolating for a long time. And just as a reminder that the Planning Commission is having a meeting on it was in Front Farm, 24th, it's a 26th walking tour of downtown to kick off the North Main 4 p.m. It's a summer street plan to look at some of the streetscaping and more downtown development opportunities. So I hope we don't lose focus on downtown and housing opportunities here as well. So, with that, I'll pass. And I don't believe we have an executive session, right?
We do.
Oh, we do. Oh, yeah. My bad. I wanted to move past that.
You're fired.
What are we asking for finding?
I believe it's personnel.
No, litigation.
Sorry. Okay, we have a motion for findings on litigation. Second. Is there any debate on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, is there a motion to enter executive session?
And invite the mayor, manager.
So Brian, I said hello.
I will. We'll be in touch.
And the clerk?
And invite the
Second. I don't know.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, guys have it. I was on a panel with VHCB today.
Yeah.
And
Now.
Move to exit executive session.
Second.
There's a motion to exit executive session and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
Move to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
Good night, Nicholas. Good night, Dave. Good night, Jackson. Good night, Jen. Good night.